Welcome everybody. I am Todd Cole, Director of Golf for the Sanford Power Golf Academy. And on behalf of Sanford and US Golf TV, we want to thank you for joining us here today. And we thought this would be a great time for us to talk a little bit about golf, maybe kind of get away from some of the seriousness that's going out in the world and start thinking about something that we all really love to do, which is of course, play this wonderful game of golf. So hopefully everybody out there is staying safe. We got some pretty serious stuff going on right now, and you're taking the necessary precautions to keep yourself safe and your family safe, and listening to the medical professionals and what they're suggesting. And so tonight though, we're going to talk some golf, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to talk about the upcoming golf season and some ways and some things that we can do to not only have a great season but really enjoy ourselves when we're out there. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce a couple people we have here tonight, and then we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So first of all, over to my far right, we've got Sam Vossler. Sam is our lead golf coach here at the Sanford Power Golf Academy. Sam, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like Todd said, my name is Sam Vossler, lead instructor here, originally from Spearfish, South Dakota, and joined the team about four and a half years ago. And at the time, I was also a collegiate coach at the University of Sioux Falls, led both programs, and just have a background. I have a PJ professional background, and consider myself a coach, not just an instructor. So today, you're going to get some good stuff. Andy just is excellent. We've learned so much from him from a staff, and we're excited just to answer some questions that we have that will hopefully lower your scores and enjoy the game more. So.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we really pride ourselves out here, not only at Sanford with the Golf Academy, but also at US Golf TV, is we like to bring people, to the table who know things that we don't know a lot about. So we can not only educate ourselves as golf coaches, but also for you out there, whether you're part of our Sanford Power Golf Academy or are part of our US Golf TV family, and you come to us for information. We know that we have a lot of good stuff, but we also know that we don't know everything. And so we like to bring people in front of you who can provide some new insights and some stuff. And so that's why I'm really excited to introduce Andy. Andy's with Sanford, and specifically the Science Sports Institute. Our staff here has done a lot of training with him. He's taught me a lot of things and helped me become a better coach. So Andy, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about what we're going to be doing tonight.
Thanks, Todd, for the warm welcome and for the invitation. My name is Andy Gill, PhD Sport and Exercise Psychology with a Bachelor's and Master's in Strength Conditioning, which makes it a pretty neat combo there that I get both the physical and mental side. I do, as both Sam and Todd said, work with coaches as well as athletes. So today we're going to try to cover some of the mental aspects for both parents, for athletes, any coaches that are out there, and as these fellows both said, they're looking to keep learning themselves. So we'll try to get them something too.
Well, all right, so here's what we're going to be doing tonight. This is, we want this to be interactive. We want you to be a big part of this. Also, we're going to be, before we dive too deep into it, tomorrow night at 5 o'clock Central Time, we're going to also be doing a similar live feed. We're going to talk about the 3 keys to putting. Now, this is something that we've done here a couple times, hugely successful. Some really good information. We're going to talk about specifically regarding to putting. And then on Friday at 2 p.m., Central Time, we're going to talk about the 3 keys to on-course strategy, and Sam's going to lead that for us. So we're here to help you out. We're here to hopefully bring some relief to the stuff that's going on in the world, talk about golf, help you get better for golf, and really hopefully enjoy this. So before we dive into it, I want to also say that we're going to come at this from a standpoint of that we're going to be golfing. We could spend the whole hour talking about why we're not golfing, but tonight we're going to focus on when we go to the golf course, what are we going to do? Because eventually this golf season is going to come, and we want to be ready. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here, and then we want to hear from you. Type in the comments, type in your questions. We got our full staff is here. They're going to write them down for us. We're going to get to them as many as we can. But I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, and I'm going to start at this from a parent standpoint, because I know we have a lot of parents out there watching. And so Andy, first question I have here as a parent, what is my role before a competitive round of golf if I'm there with my junior golfer?
Biggest thing I would say is make sure your athlete, your son or daughter knows that you love them and you're going to support them no matter what the scorecard says at the end. Go out, give the effort, do what you can. And I don't mean it in a cliche, hey, try your best sort of thing. That's not it. But just know that whether you go OB on 4 or not, mom and dad are still going to pick you up. They're still taking you home. You're still going to get your ice cream or your supper or whatever it is. And that's the biggest role as a parent, because you're not going to give them any great swing tips at the moment. You're not going to look to change course strategy at the moment. You're not looking for any of that. And whatever you say, they may not hear anyway.
Yeah.
So just remind them you love them, you got them, and you'll help them on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost so basic, but sometimes I think, we get so involved. I mean, I'm a parent. I mean, I coach golf, and I mean, I'm as guilty as any other parent. You get wrapped up into the competitiveness, and you're thinking about the score and all these types of things, but the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, you're just their parent. So, all right, Sam, what do you got?
Yeah, so next thing I want to kind of talk about, I think it's pretty common for anybody, is we want to control things, right? So I think that's why golf is probably one of the toughest things for people. You fail quite a bit, or you don't have control of everything. So my question for Andy, as this is a golfer, is what am I in control of when I'm playing the game of golf? Because there are quite a few factors outside of actually what you're trying to do. So I'm just curious what his thoughts are on that. What do you have in control when you're in your golf round?
One of the things that I like to work with folks on is identifying whose problem is it, right? The wind, the opponent. In golf, you can't do anything about it. Whatever the wind does, whatever the weather does, you have no ability to change it. Whatever your opponent shoots a high score, shoots a low score, great hole, terrible hole, you can't affect that. So what you can control, knowing your distances up front for your clubs, selecting the appropriate club, making sure that you've prepped yourself for as many of the either course conditions or types of shots that you're going to face that weekend or that day's round. Really controlling that part prep-wise on the front end, whether it's working with the academy, working with a coach, however it is, being really prepared on the front end so that when you're on course, you can just swing as you are still in control of. But it's that prep work on the front end.
Yeah, the key word there is prep. So, doing everything you can with kind of your strategy and what that plan is for you that day. It may not be the same as everybody else, but that's kind of the key word that I kind of took away from that answer, Andy. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know as a coach, and we'll be curious to hear what you guys out there have to say. Obviously, if you got comments on that or questions, fire those out there, because we're going to go ahead and answer anything that you put out there. But just as a coach, we hit a lot of shots off perfect lies. I mean, the ball's sitting, when we're training. But then they go out on the golf course and the ball's above your feet, the ball's below your feet, it's into the wind, it's downwind. And so what you're really kind of saying there is that even from a coaching standpoint is we need to be able to expose them to a variety of different things.
And that's part of it as a coach, is making those connections. Don't set them up in training for always the perfect shot. Don't set them up for always the ideal conditions. If you can get out on the course a little bit when it's raining, they may not like it, but get them on the course when it's raining some days, because it might actually happen in competition. That wind that they really don't want to deal with, I'm sorry, but get them out there. And maybe not just on the range, but maybe get them on a course and actually see how that's going to play.
Yeah, and I think even as a parent, at the end of the day, we all want to help. Even so, let's say you're a parent and, maybe you don't have a real knowledge base about the golf swing or the technical part, but you watch golf. I mean, you see the types of shots that kids are getting. If you want to help, you could just put together some form of practice schedule that replicates some of the things they might see. It could be simple as, hey, here's 5 different types of shots that I saw you have on the golf course today. Let's get out and practice them. So, all right, so let's dive into the next topic. And I know we got a couple questions that are starting to come in here, and so I appreciate that. So let's dive into some specific details. So one of the questions that was given to us earlier before as we were prepping for this is, what would be a good strategy for getting over first tee jitters? That's a very common question we get. People are nervous on the first tee. What's a strategy that they might look for?
Well, I would challenge coaches out there, including you fellas in the room, actually. I would challenge you.
Good answer.
How often do you put your athlete in a position similar to first tee jitters? So everybody gets out and makes a big circle around, for example, and you get one shot. Literally one shot in golf. You get one shot. Step up to the tee, you get one shot, and then you're done. And then you join the line, the waiting, the crew, the gallery, whatever you want to call it, and the next person gets their one shot. And whether you tie this to any sort of silly reward, day of the week, athlete of the day, something, or not, or just bragging rights to get that. But essentially, again, we're back to this idea of train to compete. Don't train just to smack balls around. Don't train just to go through the motions. Train with a purpose. So if we have first tee jitters, then know that. Or even at the golfing range on their own, right? Driving range on their own. They go up and they hit one shot and take a minute to get excited. All right, first tee, think about that, ready to go. Hit that shot and then go take a break. But then you gotta go back and sit down for a minute. You don't get to hit another second, third, 10, 15 balls. Take a break.
That's really what golf is. I mean, would you
Correct.
agree, Coach? I mean, what do you run practices all the time here at the academy, do a great job, and I know we've done some stuff like that. What would you share?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think, Andy would probably add a little more to this. I think you have adrenaline when you get to the first tee. So it's really how you use that adrenaline, whether you see it as a positive or you see it as, fear or flight. What are you going to do with that energy? And just kind of embrace that you do have those jitters a little bit. That would be maybe one way emotionally you could handle yourself. But outside of the training, we started to kind of implement some of those different ideas. And I think outside of even first tee, think about, if your season is going to start and it's cold weather, what are you actually doing to prepare for that? A lot of times we're hitting in, controlled climates. Why don't, I hear a lot of people, and I know your son said it, he doesn't like playing in rain gear. The reality is, I think the first tournament he played in rain
A lot
gear.
of rain this year, yes.
As simple as, why don't you train in those environments? Like, why aren't you wearing your rain gear? Kind of putting, again, what Andy said, really preparing and training how you're going to perform. And I think that's where golf sometimes has some disconnect. Would you agree?
Yeah, you guys spend a lot of time in idealist spots that don't show up as much on the course, and then we wonder why we have a lot of guys like me running around on the golf course. Well, because we could do a little better on the coaching side, I think. And I'm not knocking you
Yeah,
guys.
no, it's a
off.
great
That's
point.
not the comment at all.
Yeah.
But we can make training a little bit better, and that's where, with so many folks watching, that's what we're looking for, is how do we hit the most folks. The jitters from an individual athlete perspective is a little bit different, but realistically, it's what Sam was talking about there, of, hey, it's okay to have the jitters. Why are you assuming that the jitters are bad? We don't get jitters when we sit at home eating cheesy puffs on the couch. That's not good for us all the time, but when we're out on the course, it makes a difference. So we can interpret that as, hey, jitters, something I'm important, something I want to do, something that's important to me, let's go.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So we've got a couple of good questions already coming in, so we appreciate that. Keep finding those. So we got one here from Alex. Alex, thank you for throwing a couple things out there. The question is, how can you work on staying positive during your round when you are struggling? This is a real common one we get. We see it a lot. I know what I tell people, but we want to hear what you have to say, because I think we can learn something.
Well, that's high praise. But when we're struggling, what is it we're trying to do? I guess is the first thing. So back to what I mentioned before, say, what is the problem? Let's be real clear. What are we struggling on? Are we struggling on our short game? Are we struggling on thinking about a shot before we hit it? How is our approach? One of the things I work with golfers a lot is we have so much downtime between shots. When we have that walk up, are we still thinking about the last shot? Are we still worrying at the last shot? We're upset with ourselves from the last shot. We walk up, we see we have a bad lie, and now we're even more mad at ourselves. And the weather's coming, and so we're afraid of all those things, and we just let that build up. So I guess the first part I would be real clear on is ask the athlete, well, what is it you're struggling with? What part is it? And are we concerned with this shot, or are we concerned with the overall outcome of the round? Because golf, while you have a par of, say, 72 or something on a course, that's one thing done 72 times, right? You swung a golf club 72 times. So you can't make par on one swing. You can't not make par on one swing. You can't set a course record on one swing, all of those things. It's just one swing at a time. So really trying to figure out what you are struggling with, what piece is that, and being aware of it, and then we can find a solution to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know a lot of, when we talk here, what you're really saying there is creating some clarity. I mean, clarity around what is it that you're struggling with, and I know we talk a lot about that here at the Academy, and I know I do with the players that I'm lucky enough to spend time with is what are we working on? You got to have good clarity around what is it that you're struggling with so you can get to the answer, or what is it in your golf swing that what's the objective of this drill, or kind of going back to the why question that we talked a lot about earlier this year. So some really good stuff. Sam, we got another question here from Mark. You want to go ahead and tee that up?
Yeah, thanks Mark for just bringing in this question. So Mark has a question, how to bounce back from a blow-up hole. So I think the reality is we're human. We've had those bad holes, so Mark brings up a good thing that we've all been through. So just from understanding kind of the mental side of that, after having a really bad hole, what would be some advice you'd give for Mark or everybody back out there that's had a bad hole and looking to bounce back?
First, did they expect it? Because that's what I hear a lot from golfers. I always have a bad hole. Okay, well, if you keep thinking you're going to have a bad hole and you're going to go out and play 18 and you haven't had it yet by hole 16, I'm not liking your chances on hole 17. You're expecting that bad hole to come and you haven't had it yet, so it's coming, whether it's first hole or however. So step one, I would ask, are you expecting it? And if you are, let's stop expecting it, because you don't have to. There's no rule in, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no rule in golf that says you will have a snowman sometime today. You will have a quad sometime today.
Well, and Andy, I was going to say, do you think sometimes like what they bring in, the evaluation or the thought of that bad hole, I mean, I feel like a lot of people bring that into the next hole or to their process, into their pre-shot routine. So let's maybe something they could do in between, or maybe even just think about what are you doing in between that bad hole the last time you putted out going to the next tee box. What's maybe something that they could do, it's a applicable or practical thing to help them with that?
I really like trying to encourage folks to have a routine. So whether this is 5 steps out from your ball, 10 steps out from your ball, you start to switch that mental process from whatever just happened or from a distraction thought of a grocery list or chores you have to do at home or something not related to golf. Because as you think about golf, a golf swing and the approach and all of this, 30 seconds-ish or so when you're going to hit it,
Probably,
yes?
yeah.
And yet a golf round is going to take 4 hours-ish, somewhere in there, but we're really only working 30-second increments. So we have all this time in between shots. Let's make a routine. Let's approach the ball similarly of, okay, here's my distance, here's my lie, here's the pieces I need to identify, having an image in your head of the shot you want to execute, selecting the appropriate club because you know your distances, and then executing that shot.
With that, Todd, what I heard too is, I always hear stay focused for, how do I stay focused for 4 hours? I think what Andy's saying there is the reality is you're not expected to. You have short moments, in your pre-shot routine, or you shouldn't be mentally focused on something the entire time, or you might be mentally exhausted, don't you think?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, to think you're going to go out there and just stay completely focused for 4.5 hours or 5 hours, especially for some of our juniors, it's 5-hour rounds of golf, or our college players who are playing 36 holes in one day. I mean, it's just not reality for them. And I've always felt that the ability for a golfer to turn on and turn off different things is where the real magic happens. So as an example, like in a lesson, we might be working on something pretty technical, let's say, because that's what we want to achieve at that moment. But then they also have the innate ability to kind of let go of that and just focus on the target or their rhythm or their routine. Or an example, like on the golf course, if they have a bad hole, they have a blow-up hole, they're able to just move beyond that. And that skill of turning something off and turning something else on and transferring back and forth is something that I just see all the great players they're able to do. Because the truth of the matter is I don't care how long you play, you're going to have blow-up holes. And you're going to have to work on things in your technique, but you're going to have to be able to move away from that at times also.
Definitely.
I got a couple of questions actually I'm going to combine. They kind of fit well together. One is how do golfers select a course that fits their current capability, and then also matching a player's expectations to reality.
So let's do this. Sam, let's talk about players' ability, like where they should be playing from, maybe tees or length or whatever, and then Andy can talk a little bit about managing the expectations.
You bet. So I think it's an important thing to ask. First off, kind of understanding what your enjoyment in the game is, or what's your objective of playing the game. We all play different. Some people are competitive. Some are trying to make their high school team. Some people are just playing recreational. But first, to determine a little bit why you're going out there will make that round much more enjoyable and be clear of why you're out there. So I do think it's very important to match up what golf course you're going to be playing at, or understand what tees you're going to be playing from. Or just some basic things, like there is certain rules within the handicap system that you can follow that will make the game more fun and enjoyable. So I do think it is important when you get to a golf course. I also think it's important to play with people, close to your skill level if you're looking for that side of performance or enjoyment. But that doesn't exclude you from maybe playing from someone who is at a different skill. I just think it's very important to be clear about why you're out and enjoying the game of golf, or what's your objective if you're trying to shoot the lowest score possible, or you're training. those things are going to determine what your kind of process is, and the golf course is part of that, and what are you trying to get out of that. So I think that would be kind of my answer to that. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, if I could add to that, I would just say the example that comes to mind immediately when I hear that question is like, are you there for the enjoyment, or, what's your objective for being there? But I also see this happen a lot for junior golfers. Let's say they're in 7th grade or they're 8th grade, and for the first time they make the varsity golf team. And now all of a sudden they're forced to play courses that are just significantly longer than they're used to playing. So one is, Andy will talk a little bit about managing that expectation, but also how it can really impact their technique, because now all of a sudden they're playing holes that are 100 yards longer. They're trying to hit the ball, further than they're capable of hitting. It starts to flow into their natural technique, and all of a sudden what we thought was maybe going to be a really good experience for this young person in their development turns out to be a negative, because they're just, they're trying to do the right things. And so I think I'm just coming at this from more of a parent standpoint, a coaching standpoint, I think we want to put our players in situations where they're stretched, but they're not overwhelmed. Because if they're overwhelmed, bad things are going to happen. But also on the same hand, if they're just out there and they're beating everybody by 15 shots, that's not healthy either. So finding that match, I think, is key. What do you got, Andy? What do you think?
I'm going to push back on both of you fellas.
Oh,
to start.
good. Here
So
we go. Now we're still here. You're getting to the good stuff.
Right. Both of you said performance or enjoyment.
Oh, okay, good.
Why? Why can't we do both? Why can't we be self-aware, hit our capabilities, yes, stretch ourselves, but why can't we have a little fun while we're out there and understand, and I'm not the sunshine and bubbles guy, you know that, but why can't we enjoy that we're getting better out there? Why can't we enjoy the challenge of playing from a longer tee box? And I don't know anything about the handicap rules or any of that, that's not my department, but having some fun while you're out there doing that, coaching and parenting to teach the children, to teach the athletes, to remind ourselves when we're playing ourselves, to take joy in, hey, I avoided that hazard. Hey, I got through that big dog leg. Hey, I got a birdie today, because that's not normal for me. Find that enjoyment while we're out there. So push back on you a little bit on that one, but I don't know that we need that to always be an or. Let's try to find an and.
Yeah, I like that, and that's one of the reasons why we like having different people, and that's one of the things that we really like about Andy, is he kind of challenges us as coaches too to be thinking about our verbiage and how we're relaying message. And you're right, I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, anything to add to that, Sam? I know we got a couple other great questions too, so.
Yeah, I think, he's made us aware of just coach speak, things that we say, a lot of time like attaboys and stuff. Well, as a coach, it's important for me to tell you why you're doing good or what you're doing good at, so instead of it's just like kind of this, smashing into your head, good job, you don't know what you're doing well. So if you do have a lesson with one of us or someone else, challenge your coach, ask them, why did I do a good job there? Why am I not doing good? Or why was that a poor result? I think that's one thing that Andy has helped us with, is just understanding why we're saying it. The delivery and the communication is just as important when you're a coach, as well as the student receiving that information to really excel and perform.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anything else to add to that, or should we move on to the next question?
No, we got a lot here from Emma.
Okay, yeah, we got it. All right, so let me,
I got a good one really quick.
okay, so we got Nick here.
Yeah.
Nick, for those of you at US Golf TV, you know Nick. He is our video guy. He's the master behind all of the productions and takes care of all of our mix-ups. So tonight we're live though, so we can't rely on Nick, but he's behind the camera. Nick, what do you got for us?
So from Ryan Adams, for Coach Sam specifically, if he is in a heated match that's all square on the 18th hole with you, what should he focus on and avoid to beat you? How do I thrive under pressure instead of wilting under pressure?
Ooh, good question.
That's a great question. First off, I think just being in that position, hopefully you've been there before to be under pressure, but also understanding, I think at the end of the day, it's okay to put pressure on yourself and understand what's at stake. If you don't perform, we're playing a sport. So if you don't beat someone, it's not like you're gonna die. I think that, again, kind of like the first tee jitters, understanding that pressure is not a bad thing. And so I think that's the first and foremost, your process with pressure and understanding I'm in the moment, I have an opportunity as opposed to it's a threat. And I think that's gonna make you view it a little bit differently. And I think outside of like strategy and things like that, I think that's gonna help you with your self-talk and your self-confidence. So in those moments, also sticking to a pre-shot routine, just knowing what a pre-shot routine is actually doing for you. Obviously, it's helping you execute, hopefully the shot that you want to hit. But I also think that it's putting you in a position to be doing something while, so your brain isn't thinking about something else. We can't turn our brain off, but we can distract it. So if we have a pre-shot routine, I think that's going to help us, and hopefully you'll have an opportunity to beat that person. So, yeah.
Anything you would like to add to that?
No, I'm never going to be 18 all square with him, so we're good.
That's true. All right, so got a couple other questions from Emma here. Thank you, Emma. What are some ways to stay focused on my shots? I think what we're saying there is, what are some ways for me to stay focused on the task at hand versus thinking about all the other things that are going on maybe in the world at that moment?
Yeah, I really go to the routine on this one. Because again, we really only need you to dial in that focus for 25, 30 seconds, somewhere in there. That's really the only spot we need you to have 100% of your focus. So set a pre-shot routine. Do you have a pre-shot routine, right? There's step one.
Right.
And if you don't have one, then it's, well, what the heck are these fellas talking about? How do I get one? And what do I put in there? Well, we got some folks that can help you out with that. And then the idea is making sure that the right pieces are in there and identifying the lie, identifying if you have to change your stance or something there, identifying your distance. Do you have the right club? Identifying where you want the ball to go, maybe a quick little imagery that you've been trained on how to do, and then execute the shot. Control what you can control, which is your swing in that moment. Your prep work you should have already done before then. So in that moment, swing the club, your control.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that from my standpoint of just watching a lot of golf over the years is the first step is just you got to have some awareness of where are you at in terms of where is your mind, where are you focusing, where is your attention at. And the first step is to have awareness. I think a lot of people, even adults, and I was guilty of this many times myself too, is we're just even unaware of what's even going on. So it's hard to change something that you're not aware of. So I think the first step is you got to be aware of where your mind is at. And then, as Andy was saying, then I would challenge your coaches to help you develop a plan to deal with whatever situation that you become aware of. Because even the best players, they're thinking about, they have life too. I think sometimes we have this false perception that an LPGA player or a tour pro doesn't have to worry about their kids or mortgages or travel. They have the same world things that we going on. So how do they deal with that? And the biggest difference is, I think, is they're aware of it, but more importantly, going back to something Andy said earlier and Sam was talking about, is they have a strategy in place to implement when that situation comes up. Anything else on that, Sam, or do we want to move on to any other more questions we got? Or
I think it kind of leads a little bit again into what you're in control of. So Emma has another follow-up question, is how do you deal with slow play? So I think, again, from a tour player to somebody that's competing at the high school level, JV level, we've all gotten into a situation where you have slow play. So, my question for Andy would be, in those situations where it's something out of your control, you don't like your playing partner, right? Because that's reality. We hear that one all the time. I heard that one as a college coach. I don't want to play with this person because they're slow or I don't get along with them. What's a strategy or practical way to handle that? Or what's something I could focus on and be positive so I'm ready to perform?
How much does that, I'm trying to answer your question with a question, but how much interaction do you have to have with the person you're playing with?
Good point.
So that's my first question. And tell me I'm wrong here, but I don't think you have to have a lot of interaction with that person. So yeah, I get that they're slowing you down, but okay, accept it. So from hole one, or maybe before hole one, if you already know the player you're playing with or against, you already know, all right, this will be a slower round. You knew that when you put your spikes on, you knew that when you grabbed your bag and off you went. So let's not get too grumpy about things that, one, we can't control, and two, we already knew about. Let's see what we can do to focus on our swing, focus on our pre-shot routine. And we're getting a little bit sort of similar answers here on some of these questions, but realistically, that's how we focus on. It's the awareness, it's the control. And the one other piece that I guess I would say here is for the athletes out there or the individual golfer, whatever age you are, be honest with yourself. Self-awareness doesn't work if we just say, I don't know what I'm thinking about. When a coach asks, hey, what are you thinking on a hole 6? Wow, that was pretty brutal. I don't know. Well, come on, you had to be thinking something. Don't you want to share? Don't you want to say? Or you don't feel comfortable? And as a coach or as a parent, that may be an indication that you haven't quite bridged the gap as much as you need to. If your athlete won't be honest with you, if your athlete just gives you a pile of I don't knows,
it's true.
then maybe we need to do a little bit more in terms of building that trusting relationship between the coach and the athlete. So you can get the awareness a little bit higher, at least from the information side.
Yeah, I think the best players that I've been around, as I said earlier, I think they have very good awareness. And they're also really, there's an innate skill to attach the good performance or the poor performance to the appropriate thing. You know, so, you know, hey, the day didn't go the way that I wanted it to. And when they come off the golf course, and you know, we have kind of a post round, like, hey, let's talk about what went on today, what happened. They're very good about attaching it to, like, hey, I was just tired. I didn't get any sleep last night, or you know what, I was really just couldn't get over focusing on this technique thing we've been working on, or whatever that might be. Or if they had a good day, they're very good about, hey, I don't know, I felt really relaxed today. I got good sleep. I had good clarity. I had all the right yardages. Whatever it might be. But I think some self-reflection. I think that's part of maturing as a golfer. Is the ability to reflect and then take that information and accurately attach it to the good day or the bad day, and then where the real magic happens when they take that information and they relay it to their coach or whomever they're working with, so then they can say, hey, this is what happened. It didn't go the way I wanted it to. Help me figure this out. And then they work with their coach and they develop a plan that next time that comes up, they can go with it. Anything to add to that from a coaching standpoint, Sam?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, I think you guys answered it well. So.
Well, we're glad to hear that.
I don't have to add it.
We got one approval, man. We got one approval. That's all we got. Everybody else,
Stole my answer.
we got one approval.
All right, so let's keep moving on. Hey, we got some. These are great questions. Thank you for firing these out there. Hopefully, you're getting something of value out of this. Like I said, this is something we're all passionate about. We love golf. We love performance, and we love hearing from you. So we got a couple other great questions. I love this one right here. How do we transfer technique? I'm going to start with Sam on this, and then we're going to get Andy's input. How do I transfer technique from the range to the course? We see it all the time.
Yes.
Golfer, they're on the range, they're just flushing it, or on the putting green, they go to the course, and it's just not the same person. What do you think?
I think some of it we have talked about some of this, but I would also ask the person back, you know, what are you doing with your training to put you in that position? So there's got to be a disconnect somewhere. And again, that's the challenge with golf. There's a lot of variables that you have to kind of be able to self-reflect on and be like, why is this not happening? So that'd be the first thing I'd kind of consider. Hey, what are you doing in your training? Second, what's kind of your confidence level in knowing that you can perform? At some point, it kind of snowballs. And if you don't perform, and it becomes kind of your narrative. So asking yourself, your self-confidence is very important. So, even with that, I'd be curious, Andy, what are some things like specifically, let's say that player, they crush the driver in any type of wind, but they get on 13 at a certain hole and it's a left to right wind, and every single time they can't turn the ball over, a right to left draw. What would be something as a coach or that person could remind themselves that they can accomplish that and perform? What's maybe some things within self-confidence?
Well, hopefully we would find a way to get them to practice that skill with that wind and that environment sort of thing, and get them in a way to do that. Whether we can do that with a simulator in the shop here, whether we have to wait till those conditions match out there. But really what you were talking about is having a purpose when you're on the range. What are you doing? Are we just there to kill an hour and knock out 100 balls? Are we aiming at the picker-upper guy out there picking up the balls? Is that really all we're trying to do? Are we just trying to avoid the spouse and kids? Or are we trying to actually get some work done when we're out there on the range for something? And that's the why you mentioned before that we've worked on as a staff. That's being prepared and having self-confidence that you mentioned that we've worked on as a staff. Really, it's understanding what are you doing out there and being real clear on that purpose.
Yeah, and I know we had a similar conversation at one of our staff meetings the other day. We were talking a little bit about something similar to this, and Andy said something that really kind of riveted with me, and you just said, remind yourself that, hey, I got this shot. I've practiced this shot. I've prepped for this shot. I've hit this shot before. And that would be something that I would try to remind myself or any of my players and they're in those situations where it be a putt or a bunker shot or some type of shot that just kind of really, you've struggled with, to remind yourself that I have executed this shot. Not every time has it been a failure. And this is going to be a time when I'm going to really do that. So really, really good points there. All right, so we're going to keep moving on here. Keep firing these questions out there. We got some great questions. Next one we got here is, how do we cope with a bad front nine, with a bad front nine on the back nine? Is that right? Did I got that? Did I read that right, guys? Or do we need to work on your penmanship over there? Huh? Come on. We got our couple of college guys behind the camera here. Their penmanship. Okay, all right. So anyhow, I think what we're saying is like, what do we do on let's talk about it a little bit. What do we do on the back nine if the front nine just is not going very well? Or maybe the reverse. Front nine is like career 9 holes. What do I do on the back? Let's start this time with Andy. What do you think?
Tell me if I'm wrong here. This is one of them golf things now. How you do on one hole, does it have to then transfer to the next hole? Is that a rule? Like, you're really good, so it has to be really good, or you're really bad, it has to be, no.
I don't like it when you get so just
What?
basic. Come on.
That's kind of
It's
part
just
of it
too
here.
true. I don't like the truth.
The assumption here is, hey, I was really good, so that must continue. Or I was really bad and it must continue. No, it doesn't. We, each hole, each swing, we're back to what can you control? Control your routine, control your swing. Where that ball goes from there, holy smokes, we're just waiting to see how it goes kind of thing, right? We hope we executed all of our pieces. We hope we hit the ball square. We did all the right things. And then it just lands and does what it does. But up front, I don't accept the premise that you had a good or bad half of your game, half of your match, so the other one must be the opposite or it must be the same. I just don't accept that premise. I would push back hard on why does it have to be that way.
Great point. Coach, what do you think?
I'd also say, like, what is good or what is bad, and that's going to kind of determine. I mean, I think at the end of the day, golf is default your outcome score. That is what we focus on, which, obviously that's what we do, but I think the best players are breaking down into smaller process things of what they're doing well. So if your score isn't well, like let's say after the front nine you're playing really bad, and all you're focused on is your score, you got to come away with a few things that you're actually process. Maybe you hit X amount of fairways, or little small process goals that get you. So you're thinking differently, because I think everybody's had totally opposite nines where you start out hot and then you start thinking about your outcome and you're thinking about, I'm right in the hunt, I need to shoot 74 to win this golf tournament, or hey, I got to shoot the best round I've ever shot with my buddies, I'm going to break 90. So I think that's important first is, if you're focused solely on outcome all the time, that's going to dictate a lot of maybe creating this narrative in your head.
Yeah, when you guys were saying that, I was jotting down a couple of notes because this really rang home with me. I remember when I was in college and we were playing a course called Pasatiempo. It's in California. It's one of the nicest golf courses I ever played. And I remember warming up on the range, and I wasn't hitting the ball very well. And all through high school, I was kind of like just this preconceived notion, like, well, if you're not hitting the ball well in the range, you're not going to play well, right? Because I think as humans, we want to fill in the story. Like, we just want to fill it in, and this is not going well right now, so that means it's not going to go well down the road, right? And anyhow, so I wasn't hitting the ball very well, and I happened to go out and end up having one of my best tournaments of my college career. And so I remember vividly getting in the van and thinking, well, that was different. Like I guess I could hit the ball bad on the range and still have a great day on the golf course. And so I think as much as we want to try to figure out like there's some magical system, like if I do this or I do that or whatever, the truth of the matter is you have to get comfortable with the fact that if you hit a great shot right now, it doesn't mean you're going to hit a great shot in a week. If you hit a bad shot, it doesn't mean you're going to hit a bad shot. And I think the way I like to summarize that with people is that if your confidence is just completely based on results, you're never going to have any confidence. Your confidence should be a byproduct of doing the work. If you do the work, you should be able to walk to the first tee and say, I have done the work, therefore I can accept the outcome. And I know if I keep doing the work, eventually, whether it be today or tomorrow, I'm going to get some good results. And so to me, it's really more of a mindset than it is some type of a particular system or anything like that. So, okay, let's talk. We got another great question here. One of them is, what should I do? Okay, how do I prep the night before a tournament? This is a big thing. Like a lot of people struggle, like I can't sleep before this big tournament, or what should I be doing? Andy, what do you think there? Let's start with you on this one.
Are you ready for the tournament? Right? There's a difference between I'm ready for the tournament and I'm just kind of chewing on it. I'm just kind of nervous because I feel like that's what I should be doing. I feel like I should be nervous before this. But realistically, swing's in a good place. Mentally, I'm in a good place. I'm actually ready. I'm just kind of chewing on this because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. So that's one avenue to go down and explore. And the other one is maybe you're feeling a little guilty or frustrated because you know you're not prepared.
Fair
You
point.
know you haven't looked at the course. You know you're not, I don't know about my ranges are right now. Or you know you haven't eaten well for a bit. You know you're not sleeping very well lately for any reason. You know your game's not in a good place. So there's two real different ways there in terms of, are you prepared and you're just doing this out of habit? Or are you totally not prepared and this is sort of how you're trying to process that and cope with it up front? So what do you do the night before? First, make sure that you've got as much squared away as you can. So we keep saying again, prep work, understand, know where you're at. And then 2, try to get some sleep as you can. Make sure you get your nutrition ready because you got a long day ahead of you the next day.
What do you think, Coach?
Yeah, I would just add to that, whether you're, just thinking about the things that you just generally need that you overlook. Again, I think a lot of times hydrating well, eating snacks, that is a big part of that. I think it's overlooked, especially for junior golfers. It plays a big impact into just your, psychological, like everything going into that next day. So I think having kind of a checklist of, when we're at my best, what am I doing? Okay, when I'm at my best, I'm doing these 3 things. For if it's a college player and you're a student athlete, you're doing a lot of homework. Well, I notice I don't play well when I don't get all my work done the night before or give myself a good time to just rest. Think about the things that when you're playing your best golf, what does it look like, not only with your golf game, but things outside of your life. So, whether that's, spiritually or it's just like what your social life is like, what does that look like? So when you're coming in the round the next day, your mind is free because we're all human. We all have things going on in our lives and that can impact our performance.
Yeah, I really like what you said there because I think that ultimately you've got to figure out what works well for you.
And so part of that, though, with both of what you guys are saying there, the idea of keeping a journal, keeping
true.
a record, writing down
Yeah.
what you ate that day and what made you feel good, right? You're saying,
Yeah,
what do you
fair.
need to do, checklist and being ready to go. Great, but we're terrible at remembering these things.
Yeah.
We are just terrible at remembering all of the meals or all of the thoughts or whatever. So start writing it down, whether it's a reflection card, whether we abbreviate them as an R card, whether it's a more journal sort of piece. Really taking notes about that. Hey, I didn't do any course prep work and I felt great. Okay, that's the positive outcome, not great process underneath, right? So really being clear and honest and writing those things down.
You know what I think that's really important is that is when you play well. I think lots of times golfers, they're kind of hard on themselves. They remember when things don't go well, like, I didn't, but if you have a great round or a really successful day on the golf course, for whatever that might be, going back to what Sam said earlier, like what's the objective of your day, think about what did you do? Like what did you do before the round and write that down so that you can remind yourself. Because sometimes we just forget. We write down things and we don't do them well because we're kind of trained to bring those things to our coach or our training, like, hey, I need to work on this or that. But the truth of the matter is we should also be bringing to our coach, like, I had a really good week, and this is what I did. And I think that's almost just as helpful as anything. So, okay, let's get, so keep firing these questions out. We've got about 15 minutes here to go. We're going to keep plugging along. We've got some great questions. Hopefully you're seeing some value in this. We really appreciate you sticking around and firing those in there. So we got another one here. This is a great one. How do I finish a round instead of falling apart the last 3 holes? We see this, this is a very popular question. Because I had a great round going and it just fell apart. Andy, what would you tell them? And then, Coach, what do you think?
I'm going to go back to the same process stuff. I'm going to go back to the same one swing on 15 doesn't dictate one swing on 18. I'm going to go back to the same stuff. It's a false equivalency to say that one leads to this. It doesn't have to. So step 1, it doesn't have to. And then we can work with the coaches to make sure that everything else stays on point. But it doesn't have to fall apart the last 3 holes.
Yeah, I think, and this is something I learned from this guy over here, it's valuing every stroke. So it's about the strategy. Once you have the right, mindset with your mental, performance, that's about your strategy. And it's truly a skill. I think a lot of people default to technique, like, oh, my technique was bad on this. Working on some of this is a legit skill. It's a skill and it's a discipline to have this, and I think that's why some of the best players separate themselves at the highest level. So, I do think, on those last 3 holes, you have to value every stroke throughout the entire round. And so I know it sounds so common sense, but a 7 is better than an 8. And sometimes, it took me until I was 25 to really understand that, but it does matter at the end of the rounds. How many times have you gotten to the end and you're like, oh, I only lost by 2 strokes and I took a quad, I took a triple bogey. And so I think you have to fight for every stroke. And obviously there's bad luck, there's, poor, good execution, and you control what you can, but you got to fight for every stroke. And I think your college coach said something about that, right, Todd?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I vividly remember that. I was lucky enough to play for Coach Dwayne Knight at UNLV, and I was just an 18-year-old kid from South Dakota and living in Vegas, and I thought I knew something, and I didn't know anything. But I learned quickly, and I learned a lot of things from him. But one of the things that really stuck out is, as Sam just said, he taught me the value of a stroke. You could play a college event, 3 rounds, counting four scores every day, total of 12 rounds, and you could lose or win by 1 stroke. And as Sam said, that stroke on the second hole of the first day is just as valuable as the last putt on the third day. And I think my advice to this person who asked the question and just to the audience would be that, don't be a victim of society in terms of what society will do on the TV. They'll say, oh, look at this person, they missed this last putt on the 72nd hole, they lost a tournament, or they fell apart the last 3 holes. That's just unfair, because the truth of the matter is they maybe made a long putt on the second hole, or maybe they missed even a shorter putt on the 3rd hole. And so every stroke has equal value, and if it happens to fall good or bad on the last couple holes, that's just kind of like Andy said, that's just the nature of the way things go. So the value of a stroke is hugely important, and no matter where they fall at. So, okay, so let's go through it. We got a couple other ones here. So another great question here. How do I limit outside influences, such as a playing partner that is 8 under or 20 over? I as a parent watching golf, and watching teams play, Sam can probably talk this about with his teams, like, oh man, this team is 4 under and we're way over. This self-comparison that's going on almost immediately. Coach, I'll start with you there, and then we'll ask Andy.
I think, yeah, at the end of the day, that's what's in front of you, right? Like that's the situation. And so what can you control? I know we've said that a ton, but at the end of the day, you can't hit shots for that person, they can't hit shots for you. And so truly understanding why you're out there, what's your process, what's your goals within your own game. I think we can all play victim to our circumstances and be like, it's so common to get into the vehicle at the end of the round and say, well, I played bad because of this. And a lot of times it isn't, I played good because of this. But, that was always something we challenged our kids in college, or our students in colleges. You got to say, at least 2 things that you did well in this round. Because the common thing, and it's just kind of, it just starts to kind of increase, is just negative kind of talk about the rounds and why it went bad. And I think a lot of that, again, comes back to just understanding this game is very challenging. Everybody has different skill levels, and for that specific day, that person might be better or worse than you, but if you start to focus on their game, then it's going to suck the enjoyment out of unless you're competing, obviously. But if you're just out there to play, you got to find the little wins in the game.
Yeah, it's kind of cheesy maybe, but I would say sort of operating this mindset of having this little force field, having this little bubble. Like, no, the opponent's over there, not in my bubble. No, my bubble's moving on to my ball to hit my shot to go on for my road. You're over there in yours, I'm up 20, down 8, whatever it was. I want my force field. This is my house, this is my world, this is what I can control, this is what I want to vision. And then you just kind of adopt that mindset, and that's how you're going through the course. And whether they're ribbing you a little bit because you're not playing so well, or they're playing great, or whether you're just irritated, however it is. But then I would also challenge, so that's the individual athlete. I would also make sure, again, challenging the coaches, challenging the parents, that have you sent the message to the athlete?
Yeah.
I got you, I love you. I don't care what the message or what the outcome is today. I don't care. I'm still going to be there to coach you. We're still going to find something to work on. We're still going to find something to celebrate. Let's go. Go. Perform, do your best, give your effort, and come back, and we'll sort it out at the back end.
Yeah, it's great points there. I know that. Even look at the best players in the world. I guess not to pick on certain people, but I mean, Jordan Spieth, I mean, he was top of his game and ended up losing the Masters. I mean, Greg Norman was way ahead. I mean, these things happen, and just because somebody gets off to a great start and you don't, I mean, we've seen it 100 times. I mean, your playing partner's, 2 under through 5 and you're 3 over, and you get done and sign the card, and you're like, I won. Like, how did that happen? And so that's one of the things that I've really learned over just the last few years. I think I've been more aware of watching a lot of golf, especially junior golf, is there's just such an ebb and flow to it. It's like a basketball game. Nobody talks about in golf, it drives me crazy, and they talk about it in all other sports, nobody talks about momentum. And, like a team will go on a 10-0 run in basketball, or a football team scores 21 unanswered points. And in golf, there's momentum. People make 4 birdies, another person makes a couple bogeys, but at the end of the day, it usually comes down, it gets pretty close. And so I would have just more of an awareness of, hey, just because the round started this way, that's not the way that necessarily is going to end. We're going to play it out, see what happens.
And with your golf scores, right, I think sometimes we tend to understand that it's an average. So I hear this a lot. Someone says my average is 82. How many times do you actually shoot 82?
Good point.
So you're gonna have a wide range in your dispersion scores. I know that's a little off topic, but I think that comes back to expectations and understanding what your flow is. You're not gonna shoot 72 every time if that's your average. You might shoot 81 a couple times on the, obviously on the worst part of kind of your dispersion. So.
Yeah, great point. All right, so we got a couple more here we're going to fire off. Keep them coming. We're going to keep answering these as long as we can. Is it okay to have different mindsets during practice versus performance? Let's start with Andy on this one. What do you think?
I don't know what we mean by mindset, so I'd like to have a conversation. But the reality is we should have a purpose in both practice and performance. So can we have a different purpose between training and competition? Absolutely, 100%. Is that a different mindset? I'm not really sure on that one with the question. But we need to have a purpose. We need to have something we're trying to do. We need to have that, whether it's a goal specifically, what are we trying to get out of this today?
Maybe going back a little bit to one of the things we talked a lot about early here at the academy when we were doing some discussion and training, kind of the why, maybe. Like, would that be a good place for, like,
Sure.
what is the purpose, or why am I doing this particular thing?
Sure, what is this drill? Or back to where I pushed back at you fellas earlier about performance or enjoyment. Well, why can't it be both? Why can't the mindset be both today? Hey, I'm out of the house. I'm getting a little exercise. I'm doing something I enjoy. I'm not cleaning gutters. I'm not in school. I'm not sitting behind a desk. I'm not all these other things that are not golf, right? How many golf cliches are there about bad day at golf is still better than fill in the blank kind of thing? Those are the pieces there. That mindset of enjoying what you're doing, finding some way to be grateful with it, training, competition, that type of mindset I think should probably be the same.
What do you got, Coach?
And I think too, maybe this scenario, because I've seen this play out quite a bit, your mindset. I think a lot of people, from the greats, whether it's Tom Brady or Jordan, you hear people say they turn it on, or they have some sort of. So I'm curious on just your thoughts on that. Like, sometimes you see, an athlete that maybe outside of even performance, they're just kind of, ho-humming, and you're like, I don't see this shark. I don't see this person. And they get on the course, they just destroy everybody. So even just kind of like understanding what people need to do to get into that mode to have success.
Well, you're judging from the outside. Are you also judging them on the training or just in the competition? Because there are folks that can make that left turn. No, competition day to day. No, competition now. And that can change how they look, how they talk, how they get, right? Tiger was famous for his red shirts on Sunday, right? Nope, here it is, and there's color information behind that, psych research, all those wonderful pieces. But what I think what you're describing there is the athlete that says, no, I care more about competition, so I'm going to put on that face. Well, I would think, you guys can tell me more in golf specific, but you probably have more practice swings in a week than you do competition swings in a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to pay attention to those practice swings, make them worthwhile. Is it more beneficial to have less practice swings but more focused practice swings, or just more practice swings? Is it a quantity versus quality sort of thing? Whereas in competition, we want as few quantity as possible and as high a quality as possible. Do we have that same mindset do we have that same approach in practice?
Yeah, I think Sam brings up a good point there. I think the ability to kind of maybe focus is kind of what you're saying too. It might play out visually in a certain way, but the ability to kind of like, okay, this is the time when I need to really, be aware of what I'm doing and stuff like that, I think is a really good question. All right, so we've got, keep these questions coming. We've got a lot of really good ones. So what are some good post-round questions I can ask myself to properly evaluate my round? This is a really good one. So let's start with Coach Sam on this one. What should a player be asking themselves after a round to do a good assessment?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like I said, if you're focused solely on score and you don't have other things, because there are going to be days where you have bad score, and that's all you're thinking about, and if that's what your evaluation is, you're going to come away with more negatives than positives. So I think first thing is you have to have a few things that are process oriented. Like if you've been working really hard and to have success on that golf course is, I got to hit X amount of greens. I need to hit at least 10 plus, that could be a specific skill that you're evaluating at the end of the round. So it's not just score based. But I also think you need to focus on other areas outside of just like how you handled yourself that day. Hey, did I come in and prepare well before the round? Did I handle what I can control? Those would be kind of the main three things I would do. I'd be more process driven. I'd make sure that I ask myself a question about, did I go through my normal routine? And then from there, I think that will provide some good answers for you to go. So what do you think, Andy?
All the what questions are great. All the what answers, what happened, I care less about those. I want the why underneath it. Why did this go well? Why did you feel good about hole 2? Why did you feel good about your driver today? Because those whys, and again, we should be writing down both of these, the what's and the whys, so that we can remember them and track them. The whys are what's going to help you come back to know whether this was a one-off. Hey, look, I was good with my driver today. Cool, remember that. Why was I good with my driver? Well, holy smokes, look at all the training time I did on the range with my driver this week. I bet there's a connection between that drill, that activity, and how I performed in the weekend competition. Those why this happened is so important.
Yeah, it's a great point. I love what both of you guys just said right there. I would second that. And the other thing I would add is just some awareness of where was my miss? Did I miss more shots to the right or to the left, or was what was the curve of the ball, or versus just saying I drove the ball bad. Like, okay, well, why? One, right? Okay, and then also was it right? Was it left? What were the elements? What was the wind? What was the shape of the hole? What were those other environments? What I find lots of times for athletes is that it's not even the technique, because they can do that. It's the environment that changes. That's the beauty about golf. Every shot is different. The lie is different, the environment is different, the shape of the shot is different. That's what's constantly changing. So if you can start to become aware of patterns, like, I always notice when the pin's on the left side of the green, I tend to hit this type of shot. Okay, why is that? Okay, then I can take that back to my coach and start to develop some plan on that. So hopefully that's helpful. I think the guys gave some really, really good answers. All right, so let's talk about, I'm going to show this one to Sam, because Sam is our master of developing our practices around here. How can we make putting practice fun, Sam? Now I see a lot of fun happening in here in this putting green. It's not just the little kids who are having fun either. Some of you guys and our college guys are out there, they're having fun. What are we doing?
I think first you got to ask yourself, what is your narrative with putting? I think a lot of people tend to be negative about certain skills. And so if your narrative is that you say, these verbal things to yourself, I suck at putting, I never putt well under pressure, there's no way you can be successful with negative talk. I think that first is you need to flip your narrative. That's what we tell our students. That's what we tell any golfer. Golfers aren't born, they're made. You can develop great skills being a putter. So I think that's the first thing. Get that out of your head. It's not like you just, you're ready and you had great hand-eye coordination. So I think number one, that. And I do think with putting, at some point you got to spend a lot of time on the greens. But I do think it's how you set up your practice plan. And so there's got to be a little bit mix. And this is great because this is going to get into what we're going to talk about tomorrow with our three skills with discovering putting. But first, you got to work through some technique. So, you're going to spend probably, 5 to 10 minutes on something technical, whether it's working on your stability in your putting, whether it's something specific with your stroke or your setup. Then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to work on some of those different skills that are important that we'll talk about tomorrow. Speed control, your aim, green reading. So then you're going to have specific skills that you actually set up to test those. And the big thing at the end is you want to put in some pressure, some performance games to really see if you're getting better, and then just compete. The big skill that we always try to tell our students or anybody that's playing golf, you just need to put yourself in a competitive environment. And I think if you do that more with putting, at the end of the day, putt with one ball. Don't putt with 5 golf balls. Putt with one ball, put yourself in a position, have some fun with it. Put a Coke on the line. Hopefully, if you're not in college, you're not betting anything, right? I'm not telling you to do that.
Full disclaimer.
But put something on the line. That makes putting fun. You don't have to be out there for 2 hours. It could literally be 30, 45 minutes, and you could get everything done. So I know you've had some success with some really good players, Todd. I'm curious what you've maybe done with their making putting more fun or engaging.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I'm going to second what Sam said there. He took the words right out of my mouth. You got to tune in tomorrow because we're going to dive deep into that. And we're going to talk specifically about how to make it fun and how do you develop a practice plan. And we're going to talk about the narrative. And I really feel like we got some good information there. And I think at the end of the day, you got to love to putt. I mean, like, it's almost like an innate thing. And when we're kids, I mean, that's what kids love to do. I mean, that's what I did. You putt, you play games with 7-Up, you try to hustle your buddies out of a quarter or you know, chili cheese fries or whatever.
Quarter? A quarter?
Hey, listen,
Wow,
we didn't
man.
have a lot of money.
Quarter?
Quarters were big for us. I'm showing my age. But, you know, it's got to be fun. And so I would second what Sam said about playing games. And I see a lot of putting practice these days. I mean, I go to, you know, a tour event or whatever, and I mean, these are great players, so I don't want to really question what they're doing. But I mean, it's very drill oriented. And when you got to do some of that, don't get me wrong, but man, if you go to a junior tournament, the kids are putting around, they're just having some fun, and they're aware of what they're doing. But that would be anything else to add? Then we're going to finish up with a couple other questions here.
Well, I'd make a joke about avoiding the windmills or the clouds or any of that stuff, but I think you're actually talking real golf, not mini golf. But really, what I'd ask when I've talked to golfers about putting before, are they trying to get the ball close, or are they trying to put it in the pin? Or in the cup? What are we trying to do when we're putting? Is it, which one is it? And that gets to the pressure sort of thing. I just want to get it close. But what does close mean? Here, give me close, or where are we at for that different piece? So ask, what are you really trying to do?
Yeah, it's a great point. Really good point. All right, so we're going to finish up with a couple other questions here. Nick's got one for us.
Yep, I got just before we hop onto these, just about tomorrow. Will we do a demonstration as well as discussion tomorrow?
Yes, yeah. So just to give you kind of a little bit. So tomorrow we'll be rolling again once at 5 o'clock Central Time. It's going to be very interactive. We're going to be able to ask questions. We're going to be moving around. We're going to be doing drills. We're going to be showing technical stuff. And it'll be a little more challenging for our video crew. They're going to have to move around, but it's going to be really good. So a lot of demonstration drills I'm going to share with you, and Sam, we're going to share with you some information you probably never heard before. And at the end of that hour, you're going to have a real plan in terms of how to practice your putting and certainly to have some fun. So, all right, we're going to do 2 more questions here. And as we're getting closer to kind of wrapping up, we appreciate everybody sticking around here. Hopefully you're having some fun and enjoying this. I also want you to be thinking and start typing these in the comments if you would, please. Our staff here will start writing them down. Not so much questions, but what are other topics within golf that you'd like to see us cover? Would you like to see something on driving or putting or bunkers or clubs or fitting or technology? You name it, because we've got a ton of experts here at Sanford, a ton of resources that we can talk about. So start putting those in there. We'll start making a list, guys, of things you see down there. Maybe even start writing them on the board. Give us some topics. All right, so 2 more here, and then we're going to wrap it up. Is there such a thing as the right swing or the perfect swing? Andy, what?
I'm not on that one.
You
That's you
don't
guys.
have- you don't
I'm
have
just
the perfect
bowing out
swing?
of that one.
No? All right, what do you got, Sam? What do you think?
There is a right swing if it's producing the results you want, right? So if you're getting
Performance and fun.
Yes. No, but I do think it's all about, I mean, you see tons of golf swings out there that, you know, at the end of the day work. We talk about them all the time. And, you know, Jim Furyk comes to mind, Matthew Wolff, or you have the stereotypical Adam Scott. So I think at the end of the day, you need to have a swing that has the right matchups and gives you a consistent ball flight, and then you just got to go chase it and score. So to answer your question, I think it varies based off of, you know, what you're getting out of it. If you like it and you own it, that's the big thing. You got to own your golf swing. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm gonna I'm gonna answer that basically in terms of how we deal with it here at the academy. So if we have somebody comes in and they're 12 years old, 13 years old, they love to play golf, they're relatively new, they're kind of like, we can kind of mold them because they don't have a lot of old habits, whether they'll be good or bad habits, right? Then of course, we're gonna kind of move them towards what we as a staff believe is good, solid, fundamental stuff that's gonna work for the vast majority of people. But we're also gonna give them the freedom to develop their own identity. Because at the end of the day, as Sam said perfectly, there is no one right swing. The right swing is the swing that works for you. It's like your fingerprint. Everybody's a little bit different. There are some similar characteristics, and it's really about finding the right matchup. Now, also, if we get a player who comes in here, let's say they're an established college player or tour professional, then we're very sensitive to making changes because they have patterns. And they have patterns that have developed some success for them. And so what we're trying to do in those situations is help them understand how things correlate and how they work together, kind of the matrix of the golf swing. And I think that's one of the things I see right now in golf instruction that it really makes me nervous is when people are trying to get into these perfect positions and try, the golf swing is a movement in space. It's like a motion picture. It's not a still picture. When you take pictures of positions, it's just you're really going down the rabbit hole there. So think of your golf swing as a motion picture. Think of it as what's best for you, and use a coach to be a resource to help you find your own way, not necessarily the way. Because if you're searching for the way, I think you're gonna be disappointed. So, anything to add to that? I've seen your swing is pretty good. No?
Nah.
It's the right swing for you.
That's right. It sits over there. I'll watch y'all.
Sounds like our slogan.
Yeah. All right, so we got one more question here. And before we dive into our last question, just a reminder, tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Central Time, we're going to be here again. And please, if you've had a good time tonight, share this with some friends, share this with people. We're here to help people play better golf. Get away from the real serious stuff that's going on out there. Hopefully, like I said earlier, you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of yourself, you're listening to the health professionals and doing what is being asked of us to do. But this is a place where you can come, have some fun, talk about golf, get your questions answered, and we're going to be doing a lot of these over the next few days. So tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we'll be right here. And then on Friday at 2 p.m. Central, we're going to talk about course strategy. Sam's got a great program in place for that. All right, so here we go. Last question of the day, and then we'll do some closing comments and wrap it up. How can I be deliberate with my routine, yet not causing slow play? Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, deliberate versus slow seems to be just a judgment, yes?
Could be,
I feel
yeah.
like I'm being deliberate, you feel like I'm being slow. Yes?
That's very, yeah.
So I would ask you fellas, is there a magic time where sort of generally at whatever, 45 seconds or whatever the number is, where no, objectively you cross that line, you're being slow now? Or is it just how you feel versus how someone else
I would say there is. And what do you? I mean, because there's a certain time you can get put on the clock if you're too slow. So I would say, yeah.
I mean, like 30 to 45 seconds to me is deliberate. I mean, people are faster, but if you're over that, I mean, again, that's a judgment, but I feel like that's slow. So I think I would also ask the question, if you're thinking that's slow play or what's determining that, what else are you doing before that to determine maybe that someone else thinks you're slow or whatever? So making sure, I think that's kind of a general timeline. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but I think you can get your stuff done.
But that's some really good information because the person can start the stopwatch and, hey, look, I'm at 35 seconds. And when someone else says, no, you're being real slow, no, I'm good. I'm well within the range that, is normal or expected here. You just want me to play faster. No, I'm going to play my game. We're back to the force field. We're back to the bubble where I'm going to do my piece. You just think I should be going faster.
And there's an overall courtesy of just pace of play, right? So I do think it is important if you are a more deliberate player, be aware of what you're doing. If you feel tension or something that you're a slow player, what are you doing before that? You have to make sure that before you're walking up to your shot, you're getting there in a prompt way. You're getting there, making sure you have the time. A lot of times I see people, they're like, well, if people tell me I'm slow, well, you're not slow, but adding along with how long it took you to get to your ball, that's why people are judging you as a slow player. So it's just looking yourself in the mirror and truly understanding, am I my whole process slow, or is it my pre-shot routine?
Yeah, I would add to that that very seldom, in the thousands of tournament rounds of golf I've played, and gosh knows how many rounds of golf I've watched, is that is people are necessarily slow over the ball. They're slow in their process of getting ready. So what I see when people say, hey, that person is really slow, what I observe is that person is spectating, meaning like their opponents their playing partners, are hitting shots and they're just kind of standing there and they're spectating. They're watching. You know, if you have a scorecard in your pocket and you have to sign it and post a score, you are a participant. You're not a spectator, right? So that means that when they're doing their thing, you should be doing your thing. So when your time comes to hit, you're ready to play. I think it'd be impossible to be a slow player if you moved when you were supposed to be moving. I mean, I just think it's impossible. So I think that the key there is, I would completely agree with what Andy says, you got to stick to what works for you, but also be aware of what Sam said, in that if you do like to take a little bit more time in gathering your information, make sure you're doing that in the time while other people are doing their stuff without being disrespectful to what they got going on. So really good question. All right, so what we're going to do here, just to kind of wrap it up, we'll start with Sam and Andy with have each of them give a closing thought, and I'll go ahead and give a closing thought, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. What a fantastic, man, this hour and 10 minutes has gone really fast. It's been a lot of fun. Sam, any closing kind of thoughts for our audience before we tie it up?
Yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity just to, be able to talk and discuss, and we learned so much from these questions.
Yeah.
We're learning too, so it's not just coaching sessions, it's learning sessions for us, and what a great time just to use golf as therapy and to help us during these times. I mean, I think everybody wants to find some normalcy, and if we can bring that to you and you enjoy this, please let us know, because this might open up some opportunities to do different topics here in the future. So thank you, and hopefully you took in some good information today and can apply it and shoot lower scores.
Andy?
Yeah, as it relates to golf and most sport adventures, if you want to get better, have a plan, which may mean some self-awareness to start, which may mean focusing on your control, which may mean keeping notes in a journal and an R card or something, so that you have something to look back on and not just your memory.
Yeah, really good points. I will second what the guy just said there. I want to thank you for your time. Whenever we get a chance to do these, it just energizes me. I mean, we're just giving a lesson, because I learn as much. These are great questions, and it really helps us do our job. And I know on behalf of Sanford, on behalf of US Golf TV, and I know of our staff and everybody here, we just appreciate you coming. If there's anything that we can do to help, not only these videos, of course, but also, we've got a really good team of resources here. Andy is one of them, and we're going to be highlighting a lot of our people that we have on our staff here. And so thank you for coming. Hopefully we get a chance to see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Central Time. We're going to talk about putting. We're going to have some fun with putting. And so if you got any other things, be sure to leave them in the comments. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you tomorrow night.